a young lady that ran into the house. She says she's just been raped. She's got her chain on her and everything. She's someone right away. This lady's naked and everything else. She said they've been holding her for 3 days.
Imagine being locked inside a soundproof trailer, the air thick with terror. You're strapped to a cold metal table, unable to move, your heart racing as your eyes dart around the room. All you see are horrifying tools, devices straight out of a nightmare, designed to cause unbearable pain. This isn't some horror movie script. This was real life for the victims of David Parker Ray, the man behind the toy box, a chamber of horrors that defies imagination. The most spine-chilling part? We'll never know how many lives he truly destroyed. The darkness of his crimes lingers, leaving behind questions no one can answer.
That scared me to death, what I went through. It's been very hard and very nerve-wracking. He put his handcuffs on me and he had me in his trailer and he drove me to Elfin Butte. One time she said that she would kill me like others had been if he got off on me. And at one time he said that Daisy was okay, so I would.
Let me introduce you to meet David Parker Ray, a name that still sends shivers down spines, known as the Toy Box Killer. His story is one of darkness born in the shadows of a troubled childhood. Born on November 6, 1939, in the quiet town of Belen, New Mexico, David's early life was anything but peaceful. David's teenage years were no easier. He was painfully shy, especially around girls, and faced relentless bullying at school. To cope, he turned to alcohol and drugs. As he grew older, David's life appeared unremarkable on the surface. He served in the U.S. Army as a mechanic and later worked as a maintenance man for New Mexico's Parks Department in the town of Truth or Consequences. However, beneath the facade, his sinister fantasies had become a horrifying reality. But how did this seemingly ordinary man become one of the most twisted predators in modern history?
He acted like he was totally innocent and he had done nothing wrong. I didn't want to cry and let him know how much he hurt me. I didn't want to be his victim.
David Parker Ray created what he called his toy box, a soundproof trailer equipped with tools of torture and designed to hold his victims captive. Over decades, he kidnapped women, usually 4 or 5 each year, and subjected them to months of unimaginable abuse. He employed drugs to erase their memories before abandoning them on desolate roads, ensuring many of his victims couldn't recall the full extent of their trauma. What made his crimes even more chilling was his network of accomplices, including his girlfriend Cindy Hendy and, shockingly, his own daughter, Glenda Jessie Ray. Cindy shared his violent fantasies, and together they preyed on unsuspecting women. Glenda, on the other hand, once tried to alert authorities about her father's activities, claiming he was selling abducted women across the border.
Please, you guys come forward. This man was a very sick man, and these families need the closure.
David's reign of terror came to an end in 1999 when one of his victims managed to escape and alert the police. While investigators suspected him of killing up to 60 people, they never found conclusive evidence of murder. In 2001, he was convicted of kidnapping and torture. However, justice was short-lived. David died of a heart attack in 2002, just before another interrogation that might have revealed more of his dark secrets. David Parker Ray's story is a haunting reminder of the evil that can hide behind an ordinary exterior, leaving a legacy of horror in its wake. David Parker Ray, a name that echoes with fear and unimaginable cruelty. Known as the Toy Box Killer, he turned to the quiet desert town of Elephant Butte, New Mexico.
You ever heard of a woman named Marie Parker?
Not really, no.
She's a woman that disappeared about 2 years ago, and I just thought I'd ask, since I had the opportunity, I'd ask, see if you had any information that you could provide me with that.
With Marie Parker, we knew he was involved, but we didn't have enough information or evidence to pin anything on him.
For decades, Ray lived a life hidden in shadows, preying on women and leaving behind a trail of pain that stretched far beyond what anyone could comprehend. It was in 1999 that his monstrous crimes were finally exposed. But even then, the true depth of his depravity remained a mystery. How many lives he shattered, how many nightmares he created, those are answers we may never have. His name remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind a seemingly ordinary facade. Ray's property seemed unremarkable from the outside, but within it lay a horrifying secret.
His handcuffs on me, and he had me in his trailer, and he drove me to Elfin.
Just beyond his house sat a large cargo trailer he had converted into a torture chamber. He called it the toybox, though it was far from anything playful. Inside, the trailer was soundproofed and equipped with tools of unimaginable torment: chains, whips, pulleys, surgical instruments, and even devices designed to keep his victims immobilized. Mirrors were mounted on the ceiling above an obstetric table, forcing his victims to watch as they were brutalized. Every corner of the trailer was meticulously designed to inflict maximum pain and psychological torture. Ray wasn't alone in his crimes. He often worked with accomplices, including his girlfriend Cindy Hendy and even his own daughter Glenda Jessie Ray. Together, they helped him lure and capture his victims. According to investigators, Ray kidnapped and tortured 4 or 5 women every year, holding them captive for months at a time. He would then drug them with powerful barbiturates, like sodium pentothal and phenobarbital, designed to erase their memories before abandoning them on remote roads. Most victims couldn't recall enough of what happened to seek help, leaving Ray free to continue his monstrous acts. One of the few who escaped his clutches was Cynthia Vigil. She had been abducted from a parking lot and held captive for 3 days in the toy box. During her captivity, she endured unspeakable torture, but Cynthia's will to survive never wavered. When Ray left for work one day, she noticed that Hendy had carelessly left a set of keys nearby. Seizing her chance, Cynthia unlocked her chains. When Hendy realized what was happening, a brutal fight broke out. Hendy smashed a lamp over Cynthia's head, but Cynthia fought back, stabbing Hendy in the neck with an ice pick. Despite her injuries, Cynthia managed to flee the house, barefoot and wearing only an iron slave collar and chains. Desperate for help, she ran down the road until a homeowner took her in and called the police.
She was handcuffed and she had a collar around her neck which was attached to a pole. She was given a bucket for a toilet. She was sexually assaulted. She was repeatedly sexually assaulted.
Her escape not only saved her life but also exposed Ray's horrifying crimes. Cynthia wasn't the only survivor. Angelica Montano had a similar story. She was lured to Ray's house under the pretense of picking up a cake mix. Once inside, she was captured and subjected to days of torture. But when she reported the incident to police, they didn't believe her. It wasn't until Cynthia's escape that authorities began to understand the full extent of Ray's evil. Among Ray's victims was Kelly Garrett, who was abducted in 1996. Kelly had been out playing pool with friends when she accepted a ride from Jessie Ray, who spiked her drink and took her to the toy box. For 2 days, Kelly was tortured before Ray decided to let her go. He drugged her heavily and left her near her home, telling her husband she had been found incoherent on a beach. Kelly couldn't remember much about her ordeal, and her husband didn't believe her. Their marriage fell apart, and Kelly moved to Colorado, keeping her story a secret until years later, when she was identified from a videotape found among Ray's belongings. David Parker Ray kept detailed diaries of his crimes, describing the tortures he inflicted on his victims. Authorities believe he may have killed up to 60 women, but no remains were ever found. Cindy Hendy claimed that Ray dismembered his victims and dumped their bodies in Elephant Butte Lake or other isolated areas. In 1999, a fisherman discovered a sack in the lake containing human flesh, but no bones or organs, making identification impossible. Years later, in 2011, Bone fragments belonging to a woman were also found in the lake, but they couldn't be linked to any known victims. Ray's property was searched extensively by FBI agents after his arrest, but no conclusive evidence of murder was uncovered. Authorities released photos of the items to the public, hoping to identify victims or connect them to missing persons cases. Despite these efforts, the full extent of Ray's crimes remains a mystery.
Before the FBI contacted me, I used to have nightmares of being tied to a table, or handcuffs, or duct tape scared me. But I could never put any of it together. And then when the FBI called, then I knew they weren't just dreams, nightmares, they were real.
Ray's fascination with torture and control began early in life, and he honed his skills over decades. He even recorded audio messages for his victims, explaining in chilling detail what they would endure. His confidence in his methods was disturbing. He believed his use of drugs and psychological manipulation would leave his victims unable to remember their ordeal. He once described his crimes as mind games, boasting about how he enjoyed breaking his victims mentally as well as physically. Despite his horrific crimes, Ray never faced justice for murder. Although he was convicted of kidnapping and torture, he died of a heart attack in 2002, shortly before he was scheduled to reveal the locations of his victims' bodies. Cindy Hendy provided some information to investigators, but she couldn't, or wouldn't, lead them to any remains. The survivors of David Parker Ray's brutality carry their scars, both visible and invisible, but their courage in speaking out has ensured that his story will never be forgotten. Even today, his true body count remains unknown, and the haunting mystery of the toybox killer continues to cast a dark shadow over Elephant Butte. David Parker Ray's reign of terror ended not with a dramatic trial or the full truth of his crimes coming to light, but with a sudden heart attack in 2002. Authorities had hoped to uncover the dark secrets he kept buried, but his death left those answers forever out of reach. What remained was a haunting legacy. His accomplices faced justice, but not in the way many had hoped. Jessie Ray, his own daughter, spent just over 2 years behind bars for her part in the horrors. Dennis Yancey, who admitted to strangling one of Ray's victims, was in and out of prison over the years. And Cindy Hendy, one of Ray's closest partners in crime, walked free in 2019 after serving less than 20 years. Yet, out of this darkness, a spark of hope emerged. Cynthia Vigil, one of the survivors, turned her pain into purpose. She founded Street Safe New Mexico, a nonprofit aimed at protecting vulnerable people living on the streets, offering them resources, support, and a sense of safety, a stark contrast to the world she once escaped. The story of David Parker Ray is one that sticks in the mind not just for the unspeakable horrors, but for the courage of the survivors who fought back and refused to let him win. Their resilience reminds us of the strength of the human spirit even in the darkest of times. If you found this story haunting yet fascinating, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. There are more stories of survival and justice to share, and we want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the justice, or lack thereof, in cases like this? Let us know below, and stay tuned for more chilling tales.